Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Battishill, and I want to know, what's your next move? Hi there, I'm Arlene Battishill, your host and resident provocateur, and today I'm doing something just a little different. And every so often I encounter something and I just have to comment on it. And this is where the resident provocateur comes into play on this podcast. Now, I want to give you a warning that what you're about to hear, you may not want to hear. And if you've got, sensitive ears, or you're a sensitive type, or you're a sensitive entrepreneur, you should stop listening right now. Because when the resident provocateur comes out, she takes no prisoners. And that's what's about to happen. Because when I see something out there that just pisses me off, I have to say something about it. And usually the things that piss me off are just the things that people are doing that don't make any sense, especially when they've made clear they're trying to get somewhere. And when they get in their own way, that's when I got to say something. And that's what I'm doing today. Now, if you're offended, I can't help you there, because you shouldn't be offended by what you're about to hear. But I know some of you will get your panties all in a knot or your ass all up on your shoulders because you just feel like, who am I to say any of that stuff? Well, I've been around the block. I've worked with enough people. I've mentored them. I've coached them. I've had people in private Facebook groups where I've helped them launch their products, bring products to market. I've brought products to market myself. And I think I know a little bit about this stuff. And my only goal here is to get you to a place where you come to market sooner rather than later. So for those of you with sensitive ears, either turn it off now or put your earplugs in. I just wanted to do a short little something today because I happened to be in a Facebook group this morning looking at some things related to podcasting. And I noticed a guy post something about how he's struggling with all of his podcasting equipment and that he's so, as he put it, insane about the sound quality of his podcast. And he was going on and on about all the things that he's been trying and why he can't get this to work. And he's got a co-host who's 40 miles away. And should they drive to a convenient location between the two of them? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I want to stick a fork in my eye right now because this is so painful listening to this guy talking about what he's going through because he has this insane need to have audio quality that is, the kind that is equivalent to being professionally mixed and recorded and edited in a professional sound studio in Hollywood, like it's going into a movie or something. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is a perfect example of what happens to people. They lose sight of the fact that what is most important is that you put the thing out there. And if you're worrying about all of the window dressing that goes on or around the thing that you're trying to put out there, especially if you're launching something or you're putting out a brand new episode of your podcast, or you have a new product that's coming to market, or whatever it is that you're doing, if you sit there fucking around with all of this, the bells and the whistles and this extraneous stuff, all you're going to do is waste time. And you're never going to get the shit out there. And you're never going to know whether or not your audience wants what you have to offer and what you want to present to them. And so, I talk about this all the time, as I've coined it, the disease of delay. where you're looking at all the wrong things because you're trying to keep control of what it is that you're doing. And you think there's some right way to do it or some perfect way to do it, or that there's a rule book for how you do this stuff. And there isn't. None of that exists because it's different for every single person who's doing anything. For heaven's sake, what is it that you think is going to happen if one thing is out of place? It's like, combing your hair in the morning and there's one strand out of place and you're going to have a freaking meltdown and need to go to therapy because you have a hair out of place. What do you think? That the entire world is going to judge you because you have a hair out of place, or that anyone in the world can actually detect the difference between good sound quality and exceptional Dolby quality, Star Wars caliber movie theater sound quality? What is wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you spending your time looking at that kind of shit when what you really need to be doing is thinking about, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? If you're going to have a podcast and the goal is to get, 1 million people downloading your podcast, okay, you spending all your time worrying about the stupid sound quality is not getting you 1 million subscribers to your podcast. If you're sitting there trying to figure out, oh, I need to make my website look better, or, oh, I need to perfect this aspect of this product, or, oh, I need to add more things into this, or, oh, I need to create, a sales funnel, but I don't really know how to do it. So I'm going to buy an online training course and try and figure out how to do all this shit. You're never, ever coming to market. And the worst part of this is that you're delaying what you need most, which is the first dollar coming in the door. And yet people will justify over and over and over again that there's always a reason for why they can't get this thing out to market, that they're, they need to do one more thing, or this just isn't right. You know what that is? That's you being afraid to just put the damn thing out there, because somehow you must think that there is some big judge, jury, and executioner out there waiting for you to come out there, and then they're going to crucify you. What is wrong with you? Do you think you're that special, that people care that much about whether or not you're perfect? The reality is everybody's a perfectionist, and they use this idea of being a perfectionist as the reason why they're not moving forward. And it's actually a nice and convenient excuse that they tell themselves, which just gives them all the more reason to just sit there and screw around and play with this and play with that, and try and learn more things and try and do the thing in the way that it's supposed to be done, and talk to 1 million other people about how they do things, and sit and lament that all these other people are out in the market and they're not. And yet they are the ones that are contributing 100% to the fact that they have not done what it is that they want to do. And there's nothing preventing them from going forward except their fear. And I don't even think it's a fear of failure. I mean, you have to actually be moving forward towards something for there to be any possibility of failure on the horizon. But when you're sitting back and just dicking around with all the stuff that you're doing, you're not actually confronting failure. You're just confronting your own procrastination because you're too afraid. You just don't want to put it out there because you think something is going to be said about you, or somebody's going to dispel this grandiose notion that you have about what it is that you're doing, when in fact what you need to do is put it out there so someone can actually give you some feedback on it. I mean, this is ridiculous that people will sit there with ideas for months and years on end before they actually ever do anything about it. And I don't know how anybody can stand to be in that state for such a long period of time. Doesn't that frustrate you? Doesn't it make you crazy to be in a place where you can't get any movement, and it's you that's preventing yourself from getting any movement, but you make all kinds of excuses about why you can't get any movement? It's ridiculous. What are you doing? What are you thinking? I mean, if you're trying to create a business and bring a product to market and trying to launch something, don't you want to see your first dollar in sooner rather than later? Well, I guarantee you, you're not going to see anything if you continue to sit there playing around with all the stuff that you're doing. So you need to take stock of whatever the hell it is that you're doing right now to figure out, okay, every single thing that I'm doing right now, is it bringing me one step closer to my first dollar in? And if it isn't, you need to evaluate why you're doing what you're doing, because all you're doing is delaying what you need to see happen, which is your first dollar coming in. And so if you're worried about things being perfect, if you're worried about that there's some rule that you need to be following, or if you're worried about, trying to make sure you're modeling what you're doing after somebody else, you're paying attention to all the wrong things. The only thing you can be caring about right now is how quickly can I bring this thing to market so that you can get some feedback from the market that will tell you what your next move is. Because for anyone who's trying to come to market with anything, with any idea that you have to decide what your next move is. And the only way you can actually know what your next move needs to be, or to be able to evaluate what a next move might be, is to get feedback. And you can't get any feedback if you're sitting there at your desk, or sitting there in a coffee shop, or sitting in your house, still trying to figure out how to do this thing. If you can't figure out how to do it, then find somebody who's expert at this, who knows how to do this stuff, and just have them help you do it. So that's kind of my public service announcement for today. This isn't actually even an episode of my podcast. It's more just sort of a commentary on the state of what I see happening with so many people. And the reality is, none of this is necessary. Just launch and learn. It's really simple. Just launch and learn. So quit screwing around, get your shit together, and launch the damn thing. I'm Arlene Battishill. I don't care whether or not you enjoyed listening to this, because sometimes you got to smack people around to get them in gear and do what they need to do in a no bullshit kind of way. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I'll be back with a real episode next time. Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen, but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Battishill, and I want to know, what's your next move?